Really fascinating framework derived from one of history's most misunderstood philosophers, Friedrich Nietzsche. And what makes his whole framework so uniquely attractive and informative is that it completely bypasses those basic surface-level body language tricks we have literally all heard a million times. Instead, we're digging into deep psychological truths. We are going to explore exactly how to read the hidden drivers behind human behavior. So think about this for a second. You know those subtle, everyday moments with people that just leave you scratching your head? You're having a conversation, and on paper, everything seems totally fine. The words are polite, the vibe seems normal, but your gut is just screaming that something is completely off. Well, you are picking up on a disconnect between the mask they're wearing and what's actually happening beneath the surface. It's a universal experience, but until you know exactly what to look for on a psychological level, it's just this incredibly frustrating mystery. Okay, moving to section 1, the unconscious truth leak and how people give themselves away. We all kind of like to believe we're in total control of our outward image, right? Like we're the perfect master architects of our own personas. But the reality, our brains are notoriously bad at keeping our true emotional states under wraps. We are constantly leaking information. Nietzsche saw these little treats not just as random quirks or fleeting moods, but as highly readable, deeply structured patterns. He essentially believed that the truth of who we are is heavy, and lugging it around takes a ton of energy. So when our guard slips, even for a split second, the truth spills right out. It's almost never in the grand, rehearsed speeches. It's always in those tiny micro moments we just fail to censor. And these truth leaks take some very specific forms. Honestly, when we spot them, we learn so much more about a person's reality than we ever could by just listening to their carefully crafted words. For example, pay close attention to revealing silences. What is a person actively choosing not to say? Or look at sudden overreactions. Why did that tiny throwaway comment trigger a massive emotional explosion? Even uncharacteristic kindness can be a massive leak. Sometimes someone acting overly sweet is just throwing up a panicked smokescreen to hide deep-seated guilt or recent betrayal. And those totally illogical arguments, yeah, those usually happen when someone is desperately defending an emotion rather than an actual fact. Let's look at section 2, the mask of overcompensation. We're looking at visible actions versus hidden drivers. Once you've fully grasped that extreme outward behavior is almost always a counterbalance to an extreme internal deficit, everything changes. You stop reacting to the mask, and you finally start seeing the real person behind it. Think about an outward projection of extreme, unyielding confidence. Usually, that's just a mask for deep inadequacy or guilt. You've definitely met this person. They walk into a room and absolutely demand that you notice how capable, how flawless, and how right they are. But real confidence is quiet, It doesn't need an audience. So when you see someone aggressively pushing how perfect they are, your first thought shouldn't be, wow, are they really that great? It should actually be, what are they so desperate to hide? It is the exact same deal with the loudest person in the room. The one putting on that massive, exhausting performance is usually the person most terrified of their own inner chaos. They fill the air with constant noise, jokes, and drama, because to them, silence is literally terrifying. If the room actually goes quiet, they might have to sit with their own thoughts. So that loud performance, it's not for you. It is a defense mechanism built to drown out their own internal anxiety. And here is a crucial takeaway. Harsh judgments are almost always just projections. This is a massive psychological tell. If someone is hyperfixated on a specific flaw in somebody else, like constantly criticizing their ambition or their looks or their relationships, they're usually just mapping their own unhealed wounds onto that other person. Essentially, they hate in others what they secretly fear exists inside themselves. All right, section 3, echoes of the past or the childhood script. We love to think of ourselves as highly rational adults making totally independent decisions right here in the present. But psychological truths show us that we're often just playing out old, dusty scripts. People subconsciously act out their childhoods, dragging early survival mechanisms all the way into their present-day relationships. Think of it like this. An initial wound happens early on. Maybe it was just a lack of attention. Then, during adolescence, the brain builds a defense mechanism to cope, like becoming the class clown, just to guarantee they get noticed. Fast forward to the present day, and you've got a 40-year-old colleague who just cannot stop disrupting meetings to be the center of attention. They aren't actually trying to annoy you. They're just running a decades-old survival script. Take the fear of being forgotten, for instance.
This unconscious drive dictates totally irrational actions today, simply because an adult is still fighting a battle they already lost as a kid. When you see someone constantly stirring up drama or forcing themselves into situations where they really don't belong, on the surface, it's just incredibly annoying. But when you understand the deeper psychological drivers at play, you realize it's actually a tragic plea for relevance. Knowing that completely changes how you interact with them.
Which brings us to our final point. Section 4. Patterns are a confession, because the loops don't lie. Look, everything we've just discussed, the truth leaks, the overcompensation, the childhood scripts, honestly, none of it really matters if you were only looking at isolated incidents. Human beings are messy. We all have bad days. An isolated reaction is probably just that, a bad day. But a repeated pattern? That is a direct confession of a person's true psychological state. If someone lies to you once, maybe it was just panic. But if they lie to you in the exact same way, under the exact same circumstances, 5 times in a row, you are looking at a structural reality of who they are. The loops do not lie. What people do consistently is who they actually are, regardless of what they say in their apologies. By understanding these profound philosophical insights from Nietzsche, we elevate our social awareness way beyond those generic body language tricks. We aren't sitting there analyzing whether someone's arms are crossed or which way their feet are pointing. No, we are looking at the fundamental drivers of human existence, the desperate desire for validation, the terror of chaos, the heavy weight of guilt, and the lingering echoes of our past. So, I'm going to leave you with this provocative thought. It is so easy to use these tools to analyze everybody else, but the true test of this framework is turning that mirror right back on yourself. What masks are you wearing today? What childhood scripts are you still acting out on loop? Take some time to analyze yourself just as much as those around you. Thank you